Not today. Ugh, what the? My grandfather's technique.
Nerds like you should stay buried in a lab, not standing on my lawn. Camden sneered, his forearm tightening around Darian's throat as he dragged him back, the crowd leaning in as laughter cracked through the air. His grip pressed harder into Darian's windpipe, forcing each breath shorter while he shoved him slightly just to keep the spectacle going. "Look at you," Camden said louder, feeding the audience, all brains, no backbone. Phones lifted. People edged closer, waiting for panic, waiting for weakness, waiting for Darian to break in front of everyone watching. But Darian didn't collapse. His stance shifted instead, feet grounding, balance locking in, his breathing staying controlled even as the pressure tightened around his throat. Because Camden had no idea he had just put his hands on someone who had spent years mastering exactly how to break free from this. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The air buzzed with music and laughter outside the red brick fraternity house. Tables lined the well-kept lawn, colorful banners announcing the charity event fluttering in the spring breeze. Darian Ellis clutched his prototype case closer to his chest as he navigated through clusters of students. His shoulders tensed, with each step deeper into territory that wasn't meant for him. He checked his watch. Professor Alvarez's assistant would be waiting at the engineering display. Just get there, drop off the prototype, and leave. Simple enough. Well, look who decided to crash our party. The voice cut through the chatter, sharp and mocking. Darian kept walking, his grip tightening on the black case. "Hey, scholarship, I'm talking to you." Camden Voss stood with arms crossed, designer sunglasses pushed into perfectly styled hair. His fraternity brothers, Colton, Grady, and Nolan, flanked him like bodyguards, already snickering. Darian stopped. Getting through this quickly was better than making a scene, just passing through, Darian said, his voice level. "Need to drop this off at the engineering booth." Camden's eyes narrowed. "Passing through? This is a charity event for people who actually belong here." He looked Darian up and down with exaggerated disgust. Not for guys wearing $20 Walmart specials. Laughter rippled through the gathering crowd. Phones came up, ready to capture whatever happened next. "Those shoes, though," Colton added, pointing at Darian's worn sneakers. "Did you get those at a garage sale or straight out of the trash?" More laughter. Darian's face burned, but he kept his expression neutral. The prototype in the case represented 3 months of work, precision circuitry that could be damaged with rough handling. He couldn't risk it. "I need to get this delivered," Darian said, stepping sideways. Camden moved to block him. "Did I say we were finished talking? Because I don't think I did." Across the lawn, Brielle Carter emerged from between two parked cars, stopping short when she spotted the confrontation. Her face shifted from confusion to alarm as she quickened her pace toward them. "You know," Camden continued, circling Darian like a shark, "my dad pays more in taxes than your entire family probably makes in a year." And that's why he bumped hard against Darian's shoulder, jostling the case. "People like you should watch where they're going when they're around people like me." Darian steadied the case, breathing slow and deep. The training from his grandfather echoed in his mind. Control the breath, control the body, control the body, control the reaction. "Say excuse me," Camden demanded, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I didn't bump into you," Darian replied calmly. "You bumped me." Nolan's laugh seemed forced, his eyes darting between Camden and the ground. Grady cracked his knuckles, stepping closer. "Wrong answer," Camden said. "Let's try again. Say excuse me, sir, like someone taught you some manners." Phones recorded everything now. Students gathered closer, forming a loose circle. A few alumni in blazers watched from near the fraternity house steps, drinks in hand. Darian tried once more to step around Camden. "I need to deliver this." Camden stepped in front of him again, his face inches from Darian's. "You don't move until I say you can move." Darian stood perfectly still. He could feel his heart pounding, but kept his breathing steady. This wasn't fear. It was the discipline his grandfather had drilled into him since childhood, the same discipline that had earned him his scholarship, that had carried him through 3 years at a university where he'd always been an outsider. "Come on, man," someone called from the crowd. "Let him through." Camden's eyes flashed with anger at the interruption. He turned to the crowd with an exaggerated grin, playing to his audience. "You guys want to see something funny?" Camden called out. Before Darian could react, Camden spun behind him. A strong arm locked around Darian's throat, pulling him back against Camden's chest. The chokehold tightened, cutting off air. "Say it now." Camden laughed, tightening his grip. "Excuse me, sir." Darian struggled to keep hold of the prototype case while his free hand instinctively rose to Camden's arm. The crowd's laughter mixed with a few uncomfortable murmurs. Colton howled with laughter, phone raised to capture everything. Grady's meaty hands clapped in approval. "That's how you handle trespassers," Camden announced to his audience as Darian's vision began to blur at the edges. Nolan's laughter faded first, his eyes widening with unease as Darian's face darkened from the pressure on his throat. The pressure around Darian's throat tightened. His lungs burned for air. The prototype case slipped from his fingers and landed with a dull thud on the grass. Phones rose higher. Eager faces waited for Darian to beg, to struggle helplessly. Camden's arm flexed, cutting off more air. Darian heard laughter through the blood rushing in his ears, but panic never came. Instead, a familiar calm washed over him, the same feeling he'd known countless times on his grandfather's worn training mats. The world slowed down. Every sensation became crystal clear. Camden's ragged breathing against his ear, the unbalanced way he leaned back on his heels, the small gap between Camden's forearm and Darian's Adam's apple. Darian dropped his center of gravity, bending his knees slightly. With precise movements, his right hand shot up and locked onto Camden's wrist while his left hand grabbed the elbow. He tucked his chin, creating just enough space to breathe. With the Camden started, confused by the sudden change, Darian stepped across Camden's body, twisting sharply as his grandfather had taught him thousands of times. The pressure released instantly as Darian broke free, spinning out of the chokehold in one fluid motion. Camden stumbled forward, suddenly grasping at empty air. Before he could recover, Darian delivered a controlled elbow strike to Camden's floating ribs. Not to injure, just to stun. Camden gasped, doubling over. "Stay down," Darian said quietly. But Camden lunged forward with a wild swing. Darian sidestepped, swept his leg in a perfect arc, and Camden crashed face first onto the manicured fraternity lawn. The fall was hard enough that the crowd winced. The stunned silence lasted exactly 2 seconds. "You're dead," Grady bellowed, charging forward like a bull. Behind him, Colton circled to Darian's right. Darian centered his weight, turned sideways to make himself a smaller target. His grandfather's voice echoed in his head. "Never use more force than necessary. Control yourself first, then control the situation." Grady swung a massive fist aimed at Darian's head. Darian slipped the punch and countered with a sharp strike to Grady's solar plexus. Not full power, just enough. Grady's breath exploded out of him as he stumbled back, eyes wide with shock. Colton attacked from the side, thinking he'd caught Darian off guard. Darian pivoted and delivered a precise low kick to Colton's outer thigh. The leg buckled immediately. A temporary dead leg, painful but harmless. Colton staggered, cursing. Grady recovered enough to charge again, arms wide for a tackle. Darian stepped forward instead of back. Another lesson from his grandfather. Move toward danger with purpose, not away in fear. He met Grady's charge with a palm heel strike to the center of his chest, redirecting the bigger man's momentum upward. Grady's feet left the ground. Darian turned with the energy, converting it into a smooth, throwing motion. Grady sailed through the air and crashed into a folding lawn chair, collapsing it beneath his weight. The entire exchange took less than 15 seconds. Where there had been laughter, Now there was only shocked silence. Phones still recorded, but jaws hung open behind them. Several students backed away, creating distance. Across the lawn, Brielle Carter pushed through the crowd just in time to see Grady hit the ground. Her eyes widened, then narrowed with fierce pride as she recognized what had happened. Camden struggled to his knees, face flushed crimson with rage and humiliation. Blood trickled from his nose where he'd hit the grass. The perfect, untouchable fraternity prince looked small suddenly, diminished. You can't, Camden sputtered, unable to form a coherent threat. Darian walked calmly to where his prototype case lay in the grass. The latch had broken open and one corner was cracked. Months of work damaged in seconds. He closed it carefully, securing it as best he could. When he straightened, the crowd parted before him like water. Nobody spoke. Nobody laughed. Some looked away, unable to meet his eyes. Darian paused in front of Camden, who was still on his knees. Their eyes locked. Camden's filled with hatred and shock. Darian's steady and clear. Without a word, Darian turned and walked across the lawn toward the engineering building. Each step was measured and calm. His breathing controlled, despite the adrenaline coursing through his body. The silence followed him all the way to the edge of the fraternity lawn, where Brielle waited, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Minutes later, Darian and Brielle left the fraternity lawn and crossed campus toward the engineering building. An angry red mark was forming around Darian's neck where Camden's arm had dug in. His hands trembled slightly, adrenaline still coursing through his system. The prototype case hung at his side, a jagged crack running along one corner where it had hit the ground. "You okay?" Brielle asked, eyeing the bruise forming on his neck. "I'm fine." Darian's voice was steady, but his jaw remained tight. "That was?" Brielle shook her head. "I've known you 3 years and never seen you do anything like that. Never needed to." Darian adjusted his grip on the damaged case. "My grandfather always said skill without restraint is just violence." They pushed through the double doors into the engineering building's main hall. The air conditioning hit them immediately, a sharp contrast to the humid spring air outside. 14 years of training, Darian said quietly. "That's the first time I've used it outside the dojo." In the lab, Brielle grabbed the first aid kit while Darian gently placed the damaged prototype on the workbench. The clear plastic case revealed the delicate sensor array inside, their team's entry for the sustainability grant competition. The corner crack hadn't reached the internal components, but the alignment was off. "Let me look at your neck," Brielle said, opening an alcohol wipe. Darian waved her off. "The prototype first. I still need to meet Dr. Whitaker's assistant in 30 minutes. Your scholarship won't vanish if you're 10 minutes late," Brielle argued, but handed him a small screwdriver instead of pushing further. As Darian carefully realigned the sensor array, their phones buzzed simultaneously, then buzzed again and again. "What the heck?" Brielle pulled out her phone. Her expression darkened instantly. "Oh no, what is it?" Darian looked up from the workbench. Brielle turned her screen toward him. A video was playing. Darian throwing Camden to the ground, then striking Colton and tossing Grady into the chair. But something was wrong. The footage started after Camden had already attacked. There was no chokehold, no taunting, no context, just Darian seemingly attacking 3 students without provocation. "Who posted this?" Darian's voice was quiet, dangerous. "It's everywhere." Brielle scrolled through messages, Instagram, X, the campus social page. It's spreading like crazy. Darian's phone continued buzzing. He finally looked down at the notifications flooding his screen. "Did you see what Graves did?" Scholarship student just snapped. "Always knew that guy was trouble." "This is edited," Darian said, his voice tight. "They cut out Camden attacking me." "Of course they did." Brielle slammed her phone down. "We need to post the real version right now. Nobody else was filming from our angle," Darian said. The crowd was behind Camden. Brielle paced the small lab. "I'm going to blast these liars. Your scholarship, your reputation, that's exactly what I'm worried about." Darian closed his eyes briefly. If I fight this the wrong way, I lose everything I've worked for. So what? We just let them lie? Darian's phone pinged with a new notification, an email from Student Conduct. Mr. Graves, your presence is required at a disciplinary hearing tomorrow at the scheduled time in the morning regarding reports of aggressive behavior at today's charity event. Please prepare to discuss the incident. Darian showed the screen to Brielle, her face flushed with anger. This is complete nonsense. A message notification appeared on Brielle's phone from an unfamiliar number. I saw everything. The video going around is edited. I want to help. Tessa Monroe, Campus Journal. Brielle's eyes widened. Darian, look at this. He read the message, then looked up. Who's Tessa Monroe? Journalism student. Junior, I think. She's good. Does investigative pieces for the campus paper. As Darian considered this unexpected lifeline, another message appeared under the first. I got most of it on video, including the chokehold. Hope flickered across Darian's face, quickly replaced by caution. Can we trust her? Before Brielle could answer, the lab door opened. Dr. Whitaker's graduate assistant poked his head in. Graves, you're late with the prototype. What happened to it? Technical issue, Darian said automatically. Give me 5 more minutes. The door closed, and Darian turned back to the damaged case. His fingers worked quickly despite the tremor still running through them. Text her back, he told Brielle. But be careful what you say. We need to know what she has before we commit to anything. Across campus, Camden sat on his bed in the fraternity house, ice pack held to his ribs, watching the view counter climb on the edited video. Comments poured in, each one building the narrative exactly as he wanted. Aggressive scholarship student attacks innocent fraternity members without provocation. Colton lounged in the doorway, nursing his bruised leg. It's blowing up, man. 2,000 views already. Camden smiled, wincing slightly at the pain in his side. Send it to that guy your dad knows on the disciplinary board. Already did, Colton confirmed. Camden scrolled through the comments, satisfaction washing over him. The humiliation he'd felt lying in the dirt was transforming into something else. Power. He'd lost the physical fight, but this war would be won with different weapons. By tomorrow morning, Camden said, everyone on campus will know Darian Ellis as the violent scholarship student who doesn't belong here. The student conduct building stood like a stern judge at the edge of the academic quad, all clean lines and unforgiving angles. Darian straightened his tie and checked his watch, the scheduled time in the morning. He'd barely slept, spending half the night fixing the prototype and the other half rehearsing what to say. Brielle squeezed his arm. Remember, just tell the truth. You didn't do anything wrong. Truth needs proof, Darian said quietly. And right now their proof is getting all the views. Tessa Monroe sat on a nearby bench, textbooks spread across her lap, a notepad balanced on her knee. She glanced up briefly, making eye contact with Brielle before returning to her pretend studying. They'd exchanged messages last night, but agreed to keep their distance in public. Miss Carter, I need to speak with Mr. Graves alone, said a crisp voice from the doorway. The conduct officer, Miss Calder, stood with a folder tucked under one arm, her expression already set in disapproval. Middle-aged, with steel-rimmed glasses and a pearl necklace that screamed old money. Darian's arm one more time. I'll be right here. Inside the sterile office, Miss Calder gestured to a hardback chair positioned lower than her own. Classic power move. Darian sat, keeping his back straight, hands resting calmly on his knees. Mr. Graves, she began, opening the folder. I've reviewed the video evidence of yesterday's incident. Would you care to explain your violent outburst at our charity event? Darian kept his voice steady. The video circulating online is edited, ma'am. It doesn't show Camden Voss putting me in a chokehold first. It doesn't show him blocking my path or the racial comments he made. Miss Calder's eyebrows lifted slightly. Racial comments? That's a serious accusation, Mr. Graves. So is assault, which is what Camden did to me. She shuffled papers. The video I've seen shows you throwing Mr. Voss to the ground and striking his friends when they came to help him. They didn't come to help him. They came to help him hurt me. That's not how multiple witnesses described it. Which witnesses? Darian leaned forward. Because there were dozens of people there who saw everything. We're not at liberty to disclose. A knock at the door interrupted them. Miss Calder smiled thinly. That would be Mr. Voss. Camden entered the room with theatrical caution, his right arm in a navy blue sling, a purplish smudge visible under his eye that hadn't been there yesterday. Darian stared at the fake bruise, disbelief washing over him. "Sorry I'm late," Camden said, his voice dripping with false humility. "It's been difficult to move around since the attack." Darian's jaw tightened. The bruise looked like makeup. The sling was completely unnecessary. Camden had been using both arms fine in the video. "Mr. Voss, thank you for coming," Miss Calder said warmly. "How are you feeling?" "I'll be okay." Camden's eyes found Darian's, a flash of smugness behind the victim act. "The doctor says I need to wear the sling for at least a week. My teammates had to help me dress this morning." Darian fought to keep his expression neutral. "Miss Calder, Camden wasn't injured yesterday. That bruise wasn't there when he attacked me." "Attacked you?" Camden's voice rose in practiced indignation. "I just asked why you were at our event and you went crazy. Your family has a major stake in the engineering competition next month, don't they?" Darian said suddenly, watching Camden's face. Miss Calder frowned. "That's hardly relevant." "It is relevant," Darian insisted. "The Voss Foundation is co-sponsoring the grant that goes to the winning team. My team is favored to win, not Camden's project." Camden's fake, concerned expression slipped for just a second, showing real anger beneath. "That's absurd." Camden recovered quickly. "This has nothing to do with some stupid competition." But Darian had seen it, the flash of truth. "You didn't randomly pick me to harass. You targeted me to get me disqualified." Miss Calder cleared her throat. "Mr. Graves, these accusations won't help your situation. The university takes physical violence very seriously, especially given your background." "My background?" "Your scholarship status requires exemplary conduct. Frankly, I'm concerned about your ability to control your temper." Outside the office, Tessa had positioned herself closer to the door, straining to hear while pretending to highlight text. She caught fragments about the competition, the grant, and the Voss family's involvement. She scribbled furious notes, connecting dots that painted a much larger picture than a simple campus fight. Meanwhile, Brielle approached two students who had been at the fraternity house yesterday. They hurried away when they saw her coming. A third student, more brave than the others, whispered, "I saw what really happened, but I can't get involved. My dad works for Voss Industries." By the time Darian left the meeting, his face was a mask of controlled anger. The conduct officer had scheduled a formal hearing for next week and strongly suggested he stay away from campus events in the meantime. "How bad?" Brielle asked when they were alone. "Bad," Darian said. "They're making it about my aggression, not his assault. And it's bigger than just Camden being a jerk. This is about the competition." That evening, exhausted and frustrated, Darian trudged up the stairs to his third-floor dorm room. From 20 feet away, he could see something was wrong. As he got closer, his stomach dropped. The door was smeared with what looked like thick black grease in ugly streaks. A piece of paper had been taped to the center, bearing 5 words scrawled in the same greasy substance: "Know your place." Later that same evening, Darian stood outside his dorm room, scrubbing the greasy black mess from his door with a rag soaked in cleaning spray. His muscles ached from the effort, but each stroke felt like erasing Camden's smirk. Brielle paced the hallway, keeping watch for anyone who might try to catch Darian alone. "This is serious harassment," Brielle said, her voice tight with anger. "We need to report this." Darian laughed without humor. "To who? The same people who think I'm the problem?" "To me, for starters." They both turned to see Tessa Monroe walking toward them, her messenger bag slung across her body, phone in hand. She nodded at Brielle, then faced Darian directly. I've been working on something, Tessa said, pulling out her phone. I was recording when everything started yesterday. Not the whole thing, but enough. She played a video that showed Camden circling Darian, bumping his case and blocking his path. The audio was clear. What's a scholarship boy doing on our lawn? The video ended just as Camden moved behind Darian. It cuts off before the chokehold, Tessa admitted. But it proves he was harassing you, not the other way around. Darian's shoulders dropped slightly. It helps, but it won't be enough. I know. That's why I'm looking for more footage. Someone else must have recorded the whole thing. Brielle studied Tessa. Why are you helping? No offense, but most people are running the other direction. Because I've seen how the Vosses operate, Tessa said. My father worked for their company before they pushed him out. They bury people who get in their way, and I don't like bullies. Darian finished cleaning the last smear from his door. I appreciate it, but you should know what you're getting into. This isn't just some campus drama. I know exactly what it is, Tessa replied. It's power protecting power. They moved into Darian's room where Brielle kept watch by the window. Darian sat on his desk chair, tension visible in his shoulders. Can I ask something? Tessa said. You clearly know how to defend yourself. Why keep it secret until yesterday? Darian was quiet for a moment. My grandfather started teaching me when I was 8. He always said karate wasn't about fighting, it was about discipline, respect, self-control. Sounds like a wise man, Tessa said. He was. Darian's voice softened. He died my senior year of high school. Last thing he told me was to use what he taught me to build, not destroy. He looked up at Tessa. And I've seen what happens when black men defend themselves. The world doesn't see discipline or self-defense. They see threat, danger, aggression. Tessa nodded slowly. And that's exactly how they're spinning this. Darian's phone buzzed with a text. His face darkened as he read it. What is it? Brielle asked. Marco from my team. Someone broke into the engineering lab. Our prototype files have been tampered with. Brielle was already grabbing her jacket. We need to go. Now. The three of them hurried across campus to the engineering building. The lab was still unlocked, with Darian's teammate Marco inside, looking panicked. I came to run some test protocols, Marco explained. But the sensor array's completely messed up. Someone recalibrated everything and deleted the backup files. Darian examined the damage, his movements quick and precise. The main sensor unit, the heart of their project, had been physically damaged, with several connections pulled loose and one chip cracked. This wasn't an accident, Darian said quietly. They knew exactly what to break. As they worked to assess the damage, a shadow appeared in the doorway. Nolan Pierce stood there, shifting uncomfortably. Hey, he said, not quite meeting Darian's eyes. I heard about what happened with your project. Brielle stepped between them. How exactly did you hear about that? Nolan hesitated. Look, I just wanted to say Camden's really pissed about yesterday. He's not done. That's all I came to tell you. Is that a threat? Tessa asked, already recording with her phone. It's just information, Nolan said, backing away. Do what you want with it. After he left, Darian, Brielle, and Marco worked through the night to repair what they could. Tessa made calls to contacts, trying to track down anyone else who might have recorded the original incident. Near dawn, with the first hints of sunlight creeping through the lab windows, Darian submitted a temporary repair plan to their faculty advisor. His eyes burned from exhaustion, but they'd managed to salvage most of the critical components. His phone pinged with a new email. Darian opened it, then went completely still. What now? Brielle asked. Darian handed her the phone. The email was from the engineering department chair. Suspension from competition under review. The next morning, after almost no sleep, Darian leaves the lab for class under a campus cloud of rumors, disciplinary pressure, and open hostility. The campus felt different now. Darian felt eyes tracking him as he crossed the quad toward his advanced materials class. Two girls who normally smiled at him suddenly found their phones fascinating as he passed. A guy from his freshman orientation group, someone he'd helped with calculus last year, crossed to the other side of the walkway. "Just keep walking," Brielle muttered beside him. She hadn't left his side since they'd left the lab at dawn. Don't give them anything to talk about. But they were already talking. Snippets of conversation floated his way. Just snapped. Always the quiet ones. Could have killed him. The classroom wasn't any better. As Darian took his usual seat, students who normally sat nearby shifted to different desks. The empty chairs around him felt like a physical barrier, marking him as something contagious. Professor Sloan paused beside his desk after lecture. "Mr. Graves," a word. Darian nodded, already bracing himself. "I've always considered you one of our department's finest," Whitman said quietly. "But this situation is concerning. The department can't afford further incidents." "Professor, I was defending myself. Camden Voss attacked me first." Whitman's expression hardened slightly. "That's not what the video showed. And regardless of how it started, escalation only makes things worse. For everyone, but especially for you." The message was clear. The burden was on Darian, not Camden. The rules were different. Between classes, Brielle walked with him like a bodyguard. "Another one," she said, showing him her phone. Anonymous accounts kept posting in campus groups. "Watch your back, Graves, and scholarship thugs don't belong here." "This is insane," Darian said. "How is Camden getting away with this?" "Money talks," Brielle replied. "And the Vosses have been talking to the school for generations." Across campus, Tessa Monroe was hitting walls. She approached a student who had been standing near the front during the confrontation. "I was there," the girl admitted. "Camden was being awful. He even told us beforehand he was going to make an example of that scholarship student who thinks he's better than everyone." Tessa started recording. "Would you be willing to state that on record?" The girl nodded, then glanced over Tessa's shoulder. Her face changed. "Actually, I think I remembered wrong. I wasn't that close." Tessa turned to see one of Camden's fraternity brothers watching them, smiling coldly. By afternoon, Darian noticed a campus security officer following at a distance, watching his movements while ignoring the group of fraternity members laughing loudly outside the student center. As he crossed the maintenance area behind the science building, a deep voice called out, "They got you marked, don't they?" A solidly built black man in his mid-20s was examining a broken sprinkler head. His campus grounds crew uniform read Ronin. "I'm sorry?" The man straightened up. "I've been watching. Security's been tailing you since lunch, but those frat boys can do whatever they want." His eyes moved to the fading bruise on Darian's throat. "That looks like a chokehold mark. Military or police technique. How did you Ronin Hayes? 4 years Marines." "I recognize the patterns." He lowered his voice. "Listen carefully. Document everything. Keep your phone recording in your pocket. Don't go anywhere alone. And whatever you do, don't let them isolate you where there's no witnesses." Darian stared at him. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I've seen this movie before." Ronan returned to his work. "They're setting you up, and they're counting on you having no proof when it happens." Across campus, Camden held court on the library steps, his arm still in its unnecessary sling. He smiled and shook his head sadly when asked about the attack. "I was just trying to welcome him to the event," Camden said, voice dripping with false sincerity. "I never expected him to react like that. Some people just can't handle the pressure of being here, you know." The social charm offensive was working. By late afternoon, professors were watching Darian with suspicion. Students whispered about anger issues and violent tendencies. The injustice felt like a physical weight on Darian's chest, making it hard to breathe. At dusk, needing to clear his head, Darian left the lab alone for fresh air. The evening air felt cool against his face as he walked toward the campus gardens. That's when he noticed them. Colton and Grady following at a distance, trying to look casual but tracking his every move. Darian quickened his pace, cutting behind the maintenance building. The sun had nearly set, casting long shadows across the campus. He hoped to avoid a public confrontation, knowing anything could be twisted against him now. The service alley was empty, lined with dumpsters and utility doors. Quiet. Maybe too quiet. He was halfway through when a figure stepped out from behind a recycling bin. Camden. His fake sling was gone. Looking for a shortcut scholarship boy? Camden's voice echoed off the brick walls. Darian stopped. Suddenly aware of footsteps behind him, he turned to see Colton and Grady blocking the way he'd come. The trap had closed. "I don't want trouble," Darian said, keeping his voice steady. Camden laughed. "That's not what your little stunt on the lawn said." He stepped closer. "No phones recording now. No witnesses. Just us having a conversation about respect." Darian shifted his weight slightly, centering himself. "Let me pass. You embarrassed me in front of everyone." Camden's smile disappeared. "Do you know what my family contributes to this school? The buildings with our name on them? And you think you can just walk around like you belong here?" "I earned my place," Darian said. "You got a handout?" Camden spat. "And now you're going to learn what happens when you forget your place." He shoved Darian hard in the chest. "Come on, hit me. That's what you want to do, right?" Darian stood his ground. "Move aside." Camden shoved him again, harder. "Hit me, tough guy. No audience now. Show me what you're really about." Darian tried to step around him, but Camden blocked his path. "What's wrong? Scared without your little audience? Or maybe you're just remembering what happens to scholarship kids who cause problems." Darian kept his hands at his sides, his grandfather's voice in his head. "Never strike first. Never fight in anger. Control defines the true warrior." "I think he needs some motivation," Camden said with a nod. Before Darian could react, Grady's thick arms wrapped around him from behind, pinning his elbows. Colton stepped in with a vicious punch to Darian's ribs that drove the air from his lungs. Pain exploded through his side. A second punch followed. Sometimes fighting back isn't a choice, his grandfather had also taught. It's a responsibility. Darian snapped his head backward, connecting with Grady's nose. There was a crunch and a howl of pain. The grip loosened. Darian dropped his weight, twisted free, and immediately swept his leg in a low, powerful kick that connected with Colton's knee. Colton screamed as his leg buckled sideways. Darian pivoted and drove a straight punch into Colton's solar plexus. The bigger student doubled over, gasping. Grady charged with blood streaming from his nose. Darian sidestepped and delivered a sharp ridge hand strike to Grady's shoulder joint. The effect was immediate. Grady's right arm went limp, nerve bundle temporarily deadened. "You reckless fool." Camden swung wildly. Darian slipped the punch, grabbed Camden's extended arm, and used his momentum to drive him face first into the brick wall. Camden bounced off and fell to his knees, a gash opening above his eye. This wasn't the controlled demonstration from the lawn. This was survival, raw, desperate, necessary. Camden struggled to his feet, blood trickling down his face. "You're dead. You hear me? Dead." Grady tried to grab Darian with his good arm. Darian kicked his legs out from under him and sent him sprawling into a puddle. The fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. Darian's knuckles were scraped raw. His side throbbed where Colton had connected. He tasted blood from a split lip. None of them noticed the delivery van parked at the far end of the alley, its dash cam recording the entrance where most of the confrontation had played out. "Stay down," Darian warned, backing away. Camden pulled himself up using the wall for support, his designer clothes torn and dirty. "This isn't over," he snarled, wiping blood from his face. "Not even close. You have no idea what's coming." Darian turned and limped away, his breath coming in ragged bursts. His ribs ached with each inhale. The taste of copper filled his mouth. Behind him, Camden's voice bounced off the alley walls. "You're finished at this school. My family will make sure you regret this. Make sure of it." Darian kept walking, refusing to look back, refusing to show how much he hurt. But the truth hammered in his chest with each painful step. This was far from over, and the next attack might not be physical at all. Minutes later, Darian reached the campus clinic with Brielle at his side. She hadn't stopped scolding him since finding him limping across the quad. "What were you thinking?" she hissed, holding the door open. "Going anywhere alone right now is just asking for trouble." Darian winced as he stepped into the fluorescent-lit waiting area. "I just needed some air, and look what it got you." Brielle's anger barely masked her worry. Bruised ribs? A busted lip? "What's next, Darian?" The clinic receptionist looked up as they approached. Before she could speak, the door swung open behind them. Tessa rushed in, slightly out of breath, her messenger bag bouncing against her hip. "I heard what happened," she said, eyes widening at the sight of Darian's bloodied lip. "Campus gossip travels fast. You okay?" "I've been better," Darian said, touching his side gingerly. The nurse called his name, and Brielle insisted on coming back with him. Tessa waited in the lobby, already pulling out her notebook and scrolling through her phone contacts. In the exam room, the nurse cleaned Darian's split lip and examined his ribs. Bruised, not broken, she concluded, pressing an ice pack against his side. "You'll be sore for a week or two." She handed him forms to document the injury. The line for cause of injury stared back at him. "You should report this," Brielle urged. 3-on-1 in an alley is assault. Darian set the pen down. "And then what? My word against Camden Voss's? Against his father's money? Against his uncle on the board?" The nurse pretended not to hear as she noted his vitals. "Look what happened with the first video," he continued quietly. "They'll twist this, too. Make me look like the aggressor again." When they returned to the waiting room 20 minutes later, Tessa was bouncing on her toes with barely contained excitement. "I've got something," she whispered once they were outside. "Come on." She led them to a quiet corner of the student union. The late afternoon light slanted through the windows as she pulled out her laptop. "I've been tracking down anyone who might have footage from either incident," Tessa explained. "Most people I've contacted are scared to get involved, but I found someone who might actually help us." She turned her screen to show a delivery company logo. There was a campus courier delivery van parked near that service alley. The driver saw part of what happened. "How did you even figure that out?" Brielle asked. Tessa smiled. "I checked the campus delivery schedule. Then I called the company claiming to be from campus security, looking for witnesses to vandalism in that area." "That's impressive," Darian admitted. "But here's the real breakthrough," Tessa continued, her voice dropping lower. The same driver was making a delivery across from the fraternity house during the first incident. His dash cam was running the whole time. Darian straightened, wincing at the pain in his side. "He has footage of the chokehold?" "I think so. I convinced him to meet me tomorrow morning. He's nervous about getting involved, but I promised we'd keep him anonymous." Brielle grabbed Tessa's arm. "If he has the original footage, that changes everything." For the first time since the nightmare began, Darian felt a spark of hope. It would show Camden attacked first. It would show I only defended myself. "Exactly," Tessa nodded. "No edited clips, no selective angles, just what actually happened." "The conduct hearing is in 3 days," Brielle said. "If we can get this footage before then." Darian leaned back, the ice pack still pressed to his ribs. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. He might refuse when it comes down to it." "Always planning for the worst," Brielle shook her head. "It's kept me alive so far," Darian replied. Tessa closed her laptop. "The driver seemed decent. Said he didn't like what he saw happening to you." "There are good people out there," Brielle insisted. "Not everyone is Camden or his goons." The next morning, Tessa sent a message them to meet at the campus coffee shop. She was already sitting with a middle-aged man in a delivery uniform when they arrived. "This is Everett," Tessa introduced them. "He's agreed to let us see the footage." Everett nodded solemnly. "What those boys did wasn't right. My son's your age. If someone did that to him..." He pulled out a small flash drive. "I made a copy. The company keeps these recordings for insurance purposes." Tessa connected it to her laptop. The video showed the fraternity house from across the street. There was Darian walking across the lawn with his case. Camden approaching with his friends, the circling, the taunting, the clear moment when Camden locked Darian in a chokehold while others laughed. "There it is," Brielle whispered. Then the footage showed Darian's defensive moves exactly as they happened, controlled, necessary, and only after being attacked. "This changes everything," Tessa said. Everett nodded. The alley footage isn't as clear, but it shows them following you in, shows them surrounding you before anything happened. That night, in Darian's dorm room, the three of them watched both videos again. The unedited truth played out before them. Camden's bullying, the chokehold, the alley ambush. Everything Camden had lied about was now exposed. "We've got him," Tessa said quietly. Darian stared at the screen, watching his own face as Camden choked him. The proof was there. The truth was there. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to believe he might win this fight. The following day, after a night spent organizing statements and copying files, Darian entered the disciplinary review room with Brielle and Tessa carrying the strongest case they had had since the attack. Darian's heart hammered against his bruised ribs as they took their seats across from the conduct officer, Miss Calder, and two faculty observers. He straightened his tie, smoothed his button-down shirt, and took a slow, centering breath, just like his grandfather had taught him before tournaments. "We appreciate you all being here today," Miss Calder began, her tone notably less accusatory than before. "We'll hear both sides and review new evidence." When Camden walked in with his arms still in that ridiculous sling, Darian kept his face neutral. Camden's confident smirk faltered slightly upon seeing Brielle and Tessa flanking Darian. Miss Calder gestured toward Darian. "You may present your side first." Tessa stood and connected her laptop to the room's projector. "Before we begin, I'd like to show unedited footage of the initial incident." The screen lit up with Everett's dashcam footage. The image quality wasn't perfect, but it clearly showed Camden approaching Darian, blocking his path, and finally locking him in a chokehold while others laughed and filmed. One of the faculty members, Dr. Alvarez from the science department, leaned forward, her brow furrowing as she watched Camden's arms tighten around Darian's throat. "As you can see," Tessa continued, "Darian was physically assaulted before taking any defensive action." Camden's face darkened. "That footage could be doctored," he snapped. "It's from a delivery cam with timestamps and global positioning system coordinates," Tessa replied calmly. Brielle opened her laptop next. "Regarding the damaged prototype, here's the access log showing Darian was in Professor Kwan's lecture when the first file corruption occurred." She displayed a color-coded timeline. "And these security cameras show he was with me in the cafeteria when someone entered the lab." Miss Calder frowned as she studied the evidence. The second faculty member, a balding man Darian didn't recognize, removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. Darian's phone buzzed. He discreetly checked it under the table. "A text from Nolan. I can confirm Camden planned everything before the charity event. He said he would put the scholarship student in his place. We'll testify if needed." Darian passed the phone to Tessa, who nodded slightly. "We also have a witness willing to testify that this was premeditated," Tessa added. Camden's face flushed red. His lawyer-like composure cracked as he stood up. "This is ridiculous. He attacked me in front of everyone. Ask my brothers." "The ones who helped edit the videos?" Brielle challenged. "Mr. Voss, please sit down," Miss Calder ordered. For the first time since this nightmare began, Darian felt the scales tipping. Dr. Alvarez kept glancing between the footage and Camden, her expression hardening. The balding faculty member was taking detailed notes. Even Miss Calder seemed unsettled by the chokehold video playing on loop. Darian allowed himself to imagine rejoining the competition. His team needed him. The prototype could still be fixed. His scholarship would be secure. Maybe he could even walk across campus without looking over his shoulder. "I believe we've seen enough to reconsider the initial complaint," Dr. Rivera said. "The evidence clearly shows Mr. Graves defending himself after being assaulted." Miss Calder nodded reluctantly. It does appear the situation is more complicated than initially reported. Camden's lawyer's smooth facade completely crumbled. You can't possibly believe this. My father, Mr. Voss. Miss Calder cut him off sharply. Your father's position is not relevant to these proceedings. The room fell silent. Darian exchanged a look with Brielle, a fragile hope blooming between them. Miss Calder shuffled some papers. Before we reach any conclusion, I should inform you all that new evidence has been submitted regarding a second altercation in the service alley behind the maintenance building. Camden's rage transformed instantly into a cold smile. Given the serious nature of this new information, Miss Calder continued, we'll need to pause these proceedings to review it properly. What new evidence? Darian asked, his stomach dropping. Security footage, Miss Calder replied. I can't discuss it further at this time. The meeting ended abruptly. As they gathered their materials, Darian felt the brief window of hope closing. Whatever Camden had planned, it was already in motion. Outside the office, Brielle squeezed his arm. We're not done fighting. Tessa nodded firmly. The truth is still the truth. Before Darian could respond, 2 campus security officers approached. Mr. Graves, we need you to come with us. What for? Brielle demanded. Just routine questions, one officer said, not meeting Darian's eyes. As they escorted him away, Darian glanced back and saw Camden watching from the doorway, his face a mask of cold satisfaction. The security officers led Darian into a small conference room with gray walls and a single window. Dean Vega and Miss Calder sat at the table alongside a tech support staff member Darian didn't recognize. A laptop was open between them. Mr. Graves, please sit down, Dean Vega said, his voice flat. Darian took the empty chair, his muscles tense. The security officers remained by the door. Miss Calder cleared her throat. We've received some troubling footage that contradicts your version of events in the service alley. She turned the laptop toward him. On screen, a grainy security camera video played. The angles showed only the mouth of the alley, catching Darian throwing Grady against the wall and driving a palm strike into Colton's chest. The camera missed the critical first moments, Camden's taunts, Grady grabbing him from behind, the first punch to his ribs. This looks bad, Darian admitted, but it doesn't show how it started. They cornered me. They attacked first. That's not what we see here, Dean Vega said. What we see is you assaulting 2 students with what appears to be trained fighting techniques. The delivery driver has video of the first attack, Darian insisted. His dash cam caught everything. Miss Calder looked down at her papers. We contacted him. He's unwilling to get involved. Says he might have been mistaken about what he saw. That's impossible, Darian said, his voice rising. Tessa spoke to him. He confirmed Mr. Martinez has withdrawn his statement, Miss Calder interrupted. He feels pressured and doesn't want trouble. Darian's phone buzzed. A text from Tessa. My editor killed this story. Said the Vosses called the journalism department. I'm so sorry. Before he could process this, Dean Vega slid another folder across the table. We've also discovered something else during a routine technology audit. The tech specialist turned his laptop around. These files were found on a universal serial bus drive in your laptop bag in the engineering lab. They contain proprietary research data from another team's project. Darian stared at the screen in disbelief. That's not possible. I never took those files. Someone must have planted them. The access logs show your credentials, the tech specialist said. Anyone could have used my login if they had access to my bag, Darian argued. I never stole anything. Dean Vega sighed heavily. Mr. Graves, given the seriousness of these allegations, both the physical assaults and academic misconduct, we have no choice but to suspend you from the engineering competition pending a full investigation. And your scholarship status will be under immediate review, Miss Calder added. The room seemed to tilt around Darian. This is wrong, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, all of it. You're free to appeal, but until this is resolved, you're restricted from the engineering facilities and competition activities. Dean Vega closed his folder with finality. As Darian walked out, another text arrived from Brielle. Nolan disappeared. Won't answer calls. What happened in there? Outside, Brielle was waiting, pacing the hallway. "Darian." "What did they say?" "Everything," he said numbly. "They took everything." She grabbed his arm. "Tell me." He explained in short, broken sentences. The edited video, the missing witness, the planted files, the competition suspension, the scholarship review. "They can't do this," Brielle's voice echoed down the empty hallway. "The files were planted." "I know it. You were with me when those files were created. Doesn't matter. They made their decision before I walked in." Tessa rushed toward them, her face flushed with anger. "My editor caved. Said we can't run stories that unfairly target campus leaders without absolute proof." "So that's it?" Darian asked. "Camden wins?" "No, Haj," Tessa said firmly. "I'm going independent. The campus paper isn't the only place to publish the truth." They walked Darian back to his dorm in silence. His ribs ached from the alley fight. The weight of the disciplinary papers in his bag felt like stones. "You're staying with me tonight," Brielle insisted. "I don't trust them not to come after you again." "I need to get some things first," Darian said. Inside his room, Darian moved mechanically, gathering clothes and his laptop. In the bottom drawer of his desk, wrapped in a black cloth, lay his grandfather's old black belt. The frayed edges had been worn smooth by years of training. He sat on the edge of his bed, holding it in the dark. "They're trying to erase me," he whispered. Brielle sat beside him, her shoulder touching his. "They won't succeed." "I did everything right," Darian said, his voice breaking. "I kept my head down. I worked twice as hard. I avoided trouble, and none of it mattered." "It matters," Tessa said from the doorway. "The truth always matters. I'm not done fighting." Darian ran his thumb over the stitched characters on the belt. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "Discipline is not submission. It's knowing when to stand." For the first time since the day at the fraternity house, Darian allowed himself to say what he had been denying. They were always going to try to erase me, no matter how careful I was. Early the next morning, after a sleepless night, Darian was packing his clothes into a duffel bag when someone pounded on his door. 3 hard, desperate knocks that made him freeze. He glanced at his phone. The scheduled time in the morning, Brielle was still asleep on his floor, having refused to leave him alone. "Darian, open up, please." The voice was urgent, familiar, and terrified. Darian opened the door to find Nolan Pierce standing there, his left eye swollen, lips split, and hands trembling. He looked over his shoulder before pushing past Darian into the room. "I can't do this anymore," Nolan said, his voice cracking. "They're going to kill someone." Brielle sat up, instantly alert. "What are you doing here?" Nolan pulled out his phone with shaking hands. "I recorded everything. Camden's lost his mind." He placed the phone on Darian's desk. "I should have come forward sooner, but I was scared." Darian studied Nolan's bruised face. "Camden did that to you?" "When I said I wanted out," Nolan touched his swollen eye, "said this was just a warning if I talked to anyone." Nolan played the audio file. Camden's voice filled the small room, slurred with alcohol, but unmistakable. "Nobody's going to believe that quiet scholarship student over me. My family practically owns the South Wing." Laughter followed. "Did you see how easy it was to edit that video? Black kid attacks white frat boy. Story writes itself." Another voice, probably Colton's. "What about the competition?" "Already handled," Camden replied smugly. "Data's on his drive now. My father's company needs that grant, and nobody's taking it from us. Besides, people like him don't belong here anyway." Darian's jaw tightened as more voices laughed. "And if that doesn't work?" someone asked. "Showcase day. Right back where it started. I'll make him snap in front of everyone that matters. My uncle says one more incident and he's gone for good." Nolan stopped the recording. "There's more." He planned everything. The edited videos, the ambush in the alley, the planted data. They had access to the lab because Grady's cousin works campus security. Darian sat down heavily. "Why now, Nolan?" "Because I'm not who they think I am." Nolan's voice was barely audible. My dad cleans offices at night. I'm here on the same scholarship as you. Camden doesn't know. Nobody in the frat does. Brielle called Tessa, then Ronan. Within 30 minutes, they had all gathered in Darian's room. Ronan examined the bruises on Nolan's face. Camden's getting desperate. That means he's scared. He should be, Tessa said, listening to the recording again. This proves everything. The edited videos, the sabotage, all of it. Campus administration won't move fast enough, Ronan said, and they'll protect the Voss family first. So we bypass them completely, Tessa decided. I've got contacts at 3 independent news sites. We release everything at once. The original videos, this audio, witness statements. Darian stared at his grandfather's black belt still on his desk. He wants me at the showcase. To provoke me. Make me look dangerous again. Then we give him what he wants, Ronan said, his voice calm and steady. But we control the ground. What do you mean? Brielle asked. Stop reacting to his moves. Start making him react to yours. Ronan turned to Tessa. Can you live stream? Through multiple channels? She nodded. I've got friends who will help. Nolan, Ronan continued, are you willing to stand up publicly? Nolan swallowed hard but nodded. I'm done being afraid. Brielle squeezed Darian's shoulder. We need to document everything. I'll get back up copies of our project data showing the timeline. Prove us you couldn't have stolen anything. As they talked, Darian felt something shift inside him. The weight of isolation lifted. For weeks, he'd been fighting alone against a system designed to crush him. Now he had allies, evidence, a plan. The showcase is tomorrow, Nolan said. Same lawn, same brick house. All the donors, faculty, alumni. Camden thinks it's the perfect trap. It will be, Darian said quietly, just not for me. By midday, they had formed a plan. Tessa would position live streamers around the fraternity lawn. Brielle would gather their engineering teammates as witnesses. Ronan would ensure campus security couldn't interfere too quickly. Nolan would bring evidence of the conspiracy. And Darian would meet Camden exactly where this all began. But this time, with the whole truth ready to break open. He thinks I'm running scared, Darian said, looking at his friends. Let's show him what happens when I stop running. The rest of that same day was spent in motion. Darian, Brielle, Tessa, Nolan, and Ronan moved across campus like shadows with purpose, gathering evidence before word could spread that Nolan had broken ranks. We need to move fast, Tessa said, hunched over her laptop in the empty journalism lab. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, uploading files to 7 different secure servers. Once Camden realizes Nolan's talking, they'll try to shut everything down. Ronan nodded, keeping watch at the door. That's why we're hitting from all sides at once. On the screen, the unedited footage from the fraternity lawn played silently. Camden's arm locked around Darian's throat, the crowd's laughter, the precise moment when Darian broke free. Tessa uploaded it alongside Nolan's audio recording and a detailed timeline of events. There, she said, sending the final backup. Now, even if they come after my equipment, the truth is out there. Too many places to bury it all. Across campus, Brielle sat in the engineering department server room with 2 trusted classmates who had witnessed the project sabotage firsthand. Look at these access logs, she pointed to the screen. Darian was in advanced materials class when someone accessed his station, and here she highlighted a line of code. Unauthorized login at the scheduled time in the evening, exactly when the stolen data was planted. Her teammate whistled. This is bulletproof, Brielle. The timestamps don't lie. Neither do I, she said, copying everything to a flash drive. And neither does Darian. Meanwhile, Ronan moved through campus with quiet efficiency, speaking to selected people who still believe in fairness. A veteran security officer who had watched Camden harass other students. A faculty member who had questioned the disciplinary process. The head groundskeeper who had seen Camden's group following Darian before the alley attack. I need you at the showcase tomorrow, Ronan told each one. Not to intervene, just to witness. Stand where you can see everything. You're building a wall of witnesses, the security officer realized. I'm making sure the truth has enough eyes on it, Ronan replied. While his friends secured evidence and allies, Darian retreated to an empty practice room in the student center. He pushed aside chairs, creating an open space on the worn carpet. For 20 minutes, he moved through the forms his grandfather had taught him since childhood. Not fighting shadows, but reconnecting with the discipline that centered him. Power isn't in the strike, his grandfather had always said. It's in knowing exactly when to strike and when to wait. Darian practiced slipping holds, deflecting momentum, and ending confrontations with minimal force. These weren't moves for a spectacle or revenge. They were techniques for survival, for stopping violence quickly when it found you. As the sun began to set, Darian sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, breathing steady. He had spent weeks hoping someone in authority would see the truth and protect him. Now he understood what his grandfather had tried to tell him. Sometimes justice doesn't come from above. Sometimes you have to stand in the open and force the world to witness. Nolan sent a message. Camden suspects something. He's watching my dorm. They're getting nervous, Tessa said when they regrouped. Good. Nervous people make mistakes. Brielle handed Darian a folder of evidence. Whatever happens tomorrow, the facts are documented. They can't disappear this time. The facts were always there, Darian said quietly. But tomorrow everybody sees them. Back in his room, Darian packed light for the morning. Clean clothes, the evidence folder, his phone fully charged. And from his drawer, he took out his grandfather's black belt, worn soft at the edges from years of training. Darian ran his fingers over the faded fabric, remembering his grandfather's hands tying it the day he earned it. Remember, the old man had said, this isn't about fighting. It's about standing your ground when the world tells you to move. As evening settled over campus, Darian tucked the black belt beneath his shirt, tying it around his waist like a private promise. Through his window, he could see the fraternity house in the distance, windows glowing amber against the darkening sky, the brick house, where everything had started, the place where truth would finally break open. Outside the brick fraternity house, lanterns glowed warm against the evening sky. Donors in tailored blazers mingled with administrators while student ambassadors served drinks from silver trays. A string quartet played near the manicured lawn where weeks earlier Camden had locked his arm around Darian's throat. Today, the grass was spotless, the walkways lined with flowers. The annual donor showcase represented everything the university wanted to project. Excellence, tradition, and carefully maintained appearances. Darian approached from the campus path, dressed simply but neatly in a clean button-down shirt. The black belt remained hidden beneath it, a private reminder rather than a threat. Tessa walked 20 paces behind him, her phone already recording in her pocket. Brielle positioned herself near a cluster of engineering faculty, including the professor who had questioned the planted evidence. He's here, someone whispered, as Darian crossed onto fraternity property. Camden stood near the center of the lawn, holding court with 3 board members. His arm was no longer in the fake sling, but he'd maintained the story of injury with a subtle wrist brace for show. When he spotted Darian, his smile hardened at the edges. Well, look who decided to crash another event, Camden called out, loud enough for nearby conversations to pause. Didn't learn your lesson about private property? Darian stopped a respectful distance away. This is a university function on university grounds. I have every right to be here. Several donors turned to watch. Dean Roderick Voss, Camden's uncle, moved quickly toward them, sensing disruption. You've been suspended from competition, Camden continued, stepping closer. Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't pulled your scholarship yet. Must be keeping you around for diversity numbers. Darian felt the familiar heat rise in his chest, but kept his breathing steady. Camden wanted him angry, wanted him reckless. Is there a problem here? Dean Voss asked, placing a hand on Camden's shoulder. No problem, Darian said evenly. Just attending a campus event. Camden shrugged off his uncle's hand. The problem is that some people don't understand when they're not wanted. Some people need to be reminded of their place. Across the lawn, Brielle caught Darian's eye and nodded slightly. Tessa had moved to higher ground near the house steps, her phone now visible, and pointed their way. "My place?" Darian asked, allowing just enough edge into his voice to be heard by those nearby. "And where exactly do you think that is?" Camden's smile widened. He was getting what he wanted. Confrontation in front of witnesses. Not here, not with your fake claims and your tampered evidence, not with your scholarship that should have gone to someone who actually belongs. Faculty members began drifting closer. Ronan appeared at the edge of the gathering, watching silently. "You know what's impressive?" Camden continued, voice rising. "How you keep showing up after being exposed. I guess your grandfather didn't teach you when to quit." Darian's jaw tightened. "Leave my grandfather out of this." "Why?" "The old man taught you to attack people and then play the victim, right? Some kind of strip mall karate philosophy?" Grady and Colton appeared from different directions, moving to flank Darian. The trap was closing, just as Nolan had warned. "One more chance," Darian said quietly. "Walk away." Camden stepped closer, close enough that only those nearby could hear his next words. "Your grandfather was probably just as pathetic as you are. A nobody teaching another nobody how to pretend he matters." Darian's hands remained unclenched at his sides. "My grandfather was a better man than you'll ever be." "Your grandfather? You don't get to talk about him." Darian's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Camden's face flushed red. This wasn't working as planned. Darian wasn't swinging, wasn't losing control, so Camden shoved him hard in the chest, sending Darian back a step. "What are you going to do about it?" Camden challenged. "Hit me again. Show everyone what you really are." The crowd had fully noticed now. Phones rose. Tessa's stream continued uninterrupted. "I don't need to hit you," Darian said. "I just need everyone to see you." Fury distorted Camden's face. His plan was crumbling. Darian standing calm while he grew visibly unhinged. "You smug," Camden swung wildly, a looping punch aimed at Darian's jaw. Darian slipped it with minimal movement, pivoting slightly as the fist passed his cheek. Grady lunged from the side, grabbing for Darian's arm, but Darian checked the hold with a sharp forearm block and drove a short, controlled strike to Grady's solar plexus. Grady folded, gasping. "Security," Dean Voss shouted, but made no move to stop his nephew. The polished event had shattered into chaos. Donors backed away, students watched, wide-eyed, as the narrative they'd been fed collapsed in real time. Camden's rage consumed him. "Get him!" he roared to his remaining friends. "All of you, now!" Colton and 3 more fraternity brothers surged forward together as Camden regrouped for another attack. And the showcase lawn erupted into the fight that would finally expose everything. The crowd scattered backward as Camden and his friends converged on Darian. Alumni gasped, donors retreated, and faculty froze in confusion. 4 against 1 on the same patch of grass where everything had started days ago. "Hold him down," Camden shouted, his face twisted with fury. Colton lunged first, telegraphing a wild haymaker. Darian's body shifted smoothly, weight balanced on the balls of his feet. He slipped the punch by inches and pivoted, driving a reverse punch deep into Colton's floating ribs. The impact made a dull thud. Colton's breath exploded from his lungs as he staggered sideways, eyes wide with shock. Grady charged like a bull, aiming to tackle Darian to the ground. Darian dropped his center of gravity and met the charge with a raised knee, stopping Grady's momentum cold. In one fluid motion, he gripped Grady's shirt, turned his hip, and used the bigger man's forward energy to fling him into a nearby brick planter. Grady crashed into the flowers with a yelp, soil and petunias exploding around him. "Get his arms!" the 4th fraternity brother shouted, circling behind Darian. Darian tracked him with peripheral vision, keeping Camden in sight. The 4th attacker lunged, wrapping his arms around Darian's torso from behind. Darian didn't panic. He dropped weight, drove a sharp elbow back into the man's ribs, then executed a spinning hip turn that broke the hold and sent the attacker stumbling. "You're done," Camden screamed, saliva flying from his mouth. His eyes were wild with hatred and humiliation. Camden moved in from the side, arm extending for Darian's throat. The same chokehold he'd used the first day. The symmetry was perfect. The same move, the same location. Different outcome. Darian's response was instant. His hand shot up, gripping Camden's wrist before the choke could set. He twisted sharply while stepping across Camden's stance, breaking the hold and destroying his balance in one motion. Camden's arm bent at an awkward angle as Darian pivoted and threw him hard onto the manicured grass. The impact knocked the wind from Camden's lungs. He lay there gasping while Darian pinned him with minimal pressure, just enough to keep him down. "This is what really happened," Darian said, voice clear enough for nearby phones to catch. Both times, Tessa's voice cut through the commotion. "It's all going live right now." She stood with her phone held high, broadcasting everything, the unedited footage from the first attack. Camden's audio confessing to the setup, everything. Across the lawn, phones buzzed and chimed as notifications poured in. Students who had turned against Darian now watched in shock as the original video played. Camden choking Darian while laughing, the crowd joining in, the careful editing that had followed. "The university server logs," Brielle announced loudly, holding up her tablet for faculty to see, showing exactly when and how the engineering data was planted on Darian's device. Time-stamped proof that Darian was in class when the files were accessed. Nolan stood with them now, no longer hiding. "I heard Camden plan the whole thing. He wanted to ruin Darian's chances at the engineering competition. He's on tape bragging about it." Campus security officers pushed through the stunned crowd, followed by actual police officers Ronan had quietly arranged to be present. The truth was spreading faster than anyone could contain it. "That's him," one officer said, pointing at Camden. "Assault and conspiracy charges," Camden thrashed under Darian's hold. "Do you know who my father is? My uncle runs this school." "Not anymore," Tessa called out, holding up her phone. "Dean Voss's resignation is already trending. Board members are distancing themselves." The security officers pulled Camden to his feet. His face was streaked with grass and spittle, his designer clothes stained. Colton and Grady were being detained nearby, their fake confidence replaced by genuine fear. "This isn't over," Camden shouted as he was led away. "My family will make sure you regret this." "Your family can't edit reality anymore," Darian said quietly. The crowd that had once laughed at Darian's humiliation now stood in silent witness to something else. Justice happening in real time, unstoppable and public. Every phone on the lawn lit up with notifications as the truth spread across campus and beyond. Later that same night, after statements were taken and the crowd thinned, campus officials were forced to respond publicly because the evidence had already spread too far to suppress. The university president called an emergency press conference on the main steps of the administration building. Floodlights illuminated the scene as reporters and students gathered, many still watching the viral footage on their phones. "In light of overwhelming evidence that has come to our attention tonight," the president announced, her voice tight with controlled, "the university is taking immediate action regarding several serious incidents." Darian stood at the back with Brielle, Tessa, and Ronan. His body ached from the fight, but his eyes were clear and focused. For the first time in days, he stood without the weight of lies crushing him down. "Camden Voss has been arrested on charges of assault, conspiracy, and evidence tampering," the president continued. Several gasps rose from donors who hadn't yet seen the footage. 2 other students, Tyler Ransom and Grady Velez, have also been taken into custody for their participation in these attacks. Police cars with flashing lights remained parked near the fraternity house, their red and blue pulses sweeping across the brick facade where everything had started. "The fraternity chapter suspended immediately," the president added, "pending a formal investigation that will likely lead to permanent closure. Their charter privileges are revoked as of this hour." Dean Roderick Voss was noticeably absent from the row of administrators. The president addressed this directly. Board member Roderick Voss has been removed from all disciplinary and review processes, effective immediately following evidence of inappropriate donor interference in student matters. Tessa's laptop glowed as she continued documenting everything. Her story had already been picked up by 3 major news outlets. The cover-up becomes the bigger story, she whispered to Darian. Always does. The president's voice grew strained as she continued. Furthermore, all disciplinary actions against Darian Ellis are hereby rescinded. His academic standing is fully restored. She paused before adding, the university deeply regrets the mishandling of this situation. Brielle squeezed Darian's arm. That's administration speak, for we're terrified of the lawsuit we deserve. After the press conference, the engineering department chair approached Darian directly. Your team's position in the competition is reinstated with our apologies, she said, looking genuinely shaken. The false evidence has been removed from your record. She handed Darian an official letter. Your scholarship status has been protected and extended with additional funding for your graduate studies should you choose to continue here. A tall woman in a tailored suit stepped forward next. She handed Darian her business card, the logo of a major tech firm catching the light. I'm a recruiter for Meridian Engineering. We've been watching your project development with interest, but I'm even more impressed with how you've handled yourself under extraordinary pressure. Her smile was genuine. We'd like to talk about your future plans when you're ready. The night stretched into early morning as statements were formalized and evidence secured. Campus security officers who had once followed Darian now stood at respectful attention as he passed. Students who had whispered about him now looked away in shame. Nolan approached cautiously, still nervous but relieved. I should have come forward sooner, he said. I'm sorry. You came through when it counted, Darian answered quietly. As the sky began to lighten toward dawn, Darian walked with Brielle, Tessa, and Ronan past the brick fraternity house. Yellow police tape marked the perimeter where Camden had tried to destroy him. Students heading to early classes stopped to let them pass, many nodding with newfound respect. Nobody's laughing now, Ronan observed, his steady gaze taking in the changed landscape. Tessa pointed to her phone. Your grandfather's philosophy is trending. People are sharing his quote about discipline and strength. Brielle slipped her hand into Darian's. How does it feel? Darian looked at the brick house where his humiliation had begun and his vindication had ended. He touched the black belt hidden beneath his shirt. It feels like him, Darian said simply. It feels like justice. The rising sun caught the edge of the fraternity's brick facade, illuminating the spot where Darian had first been attacked. But no one laughed this time. Everyone saw who he really was. This story reminds us that real strength is not measured by how loudly we can strike back, but by how deeply we can stay rooted in truth when pressure tries to bend us. Darian's journey shows that kindness, discipline, patience, and courage are not weaknesses. They are choices, and every choice carries consequences. Some people use power to silence others, but honesty has a way of gathering witnesses, building courage, and opening doors that fear tried to keep shut. We may not control every unfair moment that comes our way, but we can choose how we stand, how we protect our dignity, how we forgive without forgetting the lesson, and how we keep living with respect for ourselves and compassion for others. When life tests your character, choose the path that lets you look back with peace. Choose truth. Choose kindness. Choose to stand without becoming cruel. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I've picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.